are so proud to have your presence in our programs. So welcome and thanks for accepting. So now we are so glad to see your topic, and then we are ready to participate in the activity that we are involved. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. So as I stated previously, education is ever evolving, it's ever changing. So we have to change with the times, right? So I talked a little bit about Bloom's and how Bloom's has been the foundational part of education. It was revamped in the 1990s to have more verbs, not just the nouns that we're describing. But Bloom's is linear, it's hierarchical. And although it's well organized, it's not really how we think. And I also talked about and introduced the acronym JEDI, which is not Star Wars Jedi. It's Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. So first, equity, just to give a quick summary, equity is giving everybody what they need, not everybody the same thing. So for example, the tall guy does not need a box. The short girl needs 2 boxes in order to see over the fence, and the boy in the wheelchair needs a ramp. So access to equity is really important, not just equality. But as Mary Jane Latondra stated, we're not talking about lowering our standards. We're talking about keeping those same high standards, but making sure everybody has access to whatever they need at whatever points that they need them at. And diversity is multi-layered. There are so many different parts to it, and it is about all of us having to figure out how to walk through this world together, as Jacqueline Whitson stated. Inclusion. So inclusion, if I draw your attention to this little silo in the integration circle, integration is not purely included, where the color dots are not equally interspersed throughout. Inclusion literally means spread out everywhere. And Dr. George Day says inclusion is about making a new space and a better space for everyone. It's not talking about what we already have, it's about how we can make it better. So we are continuing to move on with through education with these different ideas. And finally, justice. So justice is the systematic and proactive reinforcement of public policies, institutional practices, and cultural messages, and social norms needed to achieve and sustain equity for all. So here's that word equity again. And it's compassion and accountability together ensure that we have fair access to opportunity. But what we really need, true justice, is taking away that wall that we needed to deal with equity in the first place. And so as we know, in reality, one person is always going to get more than what they need. Equality means that there are, everyone gets the same box, but of course, equity, as we said, people need different amount of boxes or even ramps if you were in a wheelchair, as the other picture illustrated. True justice takes away that wall, takes away the fence that caused the inequity in the first place. So the actual inequity was addressed and that systemic barrier was removed. And this is going to look different in wherever country in the world that we are teaching. Some of the limitations that we have, some of the resources that we have will not make this possible initially, but this is the kind of the goal that we're looking for. So this is a kind of questions about how justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion work together by Dr. D.L. Stewart. And she says, diversity asks who is in the room. Equity responds, who is trying to get in the room but can't? Whose presence in the room is under constant threat of erasure? And inclusion asks, has everyone's idea been heard? Justice responds, whose ideas won't be taken because they aren't in the majority? Diversity asks, how many more of a certain group do we have than last year? And equity responds with, what conditions have we created that make certain groups the perpetual majority? I mean, are there conditions, are there criteria that we've made to make certain groups the majority? And inclusion asks and challenges, is this environment safe for everyone? And justice challenges, whose safety is being sacrificed and minimized to allow others to be comfortable maintaining dehumanizing views. So before we get into the Jamboard, which I'm very excited about getting into, I want to talk a little bit about the progression in education. So there were first the 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic. And then there were these C's, which really kind of moved into and started to kind of perpetuate and go through 21st century education. So we had the C's of critical thinking, collaboration, communication, and creativity. And then we had more C's later on, which was connectivity, culture, citizenship, and character. And then around 2018, they started looking at metacognition, which is literally thinking about thinking and teaching students to think. And this seems to be a given, right? Students should know how to think. But if students are obsessed with the rubric, if students are obsessed with the grade, if students are obsessed with how they're going to be evaluated, they may need to learn how to think for themselves. For example, one time in one of my business English classes, I asked students, I was like, write whatever is on your mind, just to kind of, break through kind of, insurance, warm-up activity, what is on your mind? I had questions about, okay, how many words? Is it going to be graded? What is the topic? What particularly do you want? And I was shocked. I'm like, just write what's on your mind. What are you thinking about? Okay, well, what do you think I'm thinking about? What do you want me to think about? Like, they were so obsessed over their grade, the criteria, what they were going to be evaluated from, that they weren't even able to really think about and write down what they were thinking about. They had to have what was like the right answer. There's no right answer about what you're thinking. It's whatever you're thinking. So that metacognition is crucial, is a crucial point as we start talking about these different areas to rethink the education space. So AHIC 2021 discusses alternatives to Bloom's. In the article discussed 7 of them. I'm only going to discuss 2 of them. These alternatives take into account the full student, and it has sections for self-knowledge, for empathy, etc. Now, why is this important? So where I am currently located in Palestine, in the West Bank, we have students who are sometimes they are traveling from far distances or traveling from different cities. As you can see here, we have Hebron, we have Nablus, Ramallah is where I am located. And so we have students who are literally traveling, and look at all these different areas. The black dots are roadblocks. The yellow dots are permanent checkpoints. And the red are settlements from people who are not Palestinian. So they don't know what kind of checkpoints or what kind of hardships they're going to face as even they're trying to travel to university, to school. So I want to turn your attention to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which of course you have the physiological needs, safety needs, love and belonging, esteem, to self-actualization. Now it's proven in research that if students do not have these, they cannot move on to the educational part of this. Now, during COVID, there was the saying, Maslow's before Bloom's. Now, as you can see here, you see the stages of Maslow's, you see the stages of Bloom's. But in any part of that, in any part of Bloom's, is there anything that talks about well-being? Is there anything that talks about empathy? Is there anything that still looks after the whole student? It goes from, okay, are we okay? Okay, we're okay. We're going to move on to Maslow, or we're going to move on to Bloom's. But what if they are in a perpetual state of not okay? We still have to teach. We still have the objectives to cover. So how can what does that look like? What does that look like? We have to have different ways, different taxonomies that will include the whole student. So I want to show you 2 of them. And we're going to kind of go with the circular theme here. The circle, I like the circle. It's never ending. It's continuous. You can start anywhere. You can finish anywhere. You can leave off anywhere. And this very much takes into account different types of students and learning. So we have interdependence, explaining how everything relates to ideas. We have the whole, the parts, the function, the abstraction, but also the self. So the self-directed future learning about the topic. And so we have all these different ideas kind of entwining together that will make up the lesson. It's not hierarchical. It's not you have to do one before the next, before the next. And again, Bloom's is a very good foundational place to start. We would not have these taxonomies if we didn't have Bloom's first. So I'm not kicking Bloom's to the curb by any way, shape, or form. And then my favorite is called The Taxonomy of Significant Learning by Dr. D. Fink. Now, Dr. Fink has included these ideas of caring, the human dimension, but of course you have the crucial educational aspects of learning how to learn, the foundational knowledge, and right in the center is that convergence, and that is where significant learning takes place. But she says you cannot have significant learning without having a more human, social, emotional dimension that is incorporated into the curriculum, that is incorporated into the projects and into the test and into assessment and into, as much as you can into your curriculum. Keeping with the circle theme, I love the circle theme when you're looking at scaffolding. So you've probably seen scaffolding by stairs. You reach one level, then you reach a level, and you set a goal, then you reach a level. I love this kind of circle where it starts with prior knowledge and you go to a sub goal, new learner understanding, then you see a sub goal, then you have new learner understanding, another sub goal, until you reach a final goal. Now, final goal could be the end of a unit, final goal could be the end of a semester, the end of an assessment. You decide how those final goals look, but I love the circular nature because it is dynamic, it is ever changing, similar to these different taxonomies. And again, I've only explained 2 out of the 7 of them from the Hike article. And I can share that link with you later on. And then we move on to multiple intelligences. So this goes on with Garner's theory of multiple intelligences. And it really talks about how people learn differently. So you have the musical. Can you learn by music, bodily kinesthetic? You learn by movement, interpersonal, learning between each other, intrapersonal, being more intuitive and inside, visual spatial if you're a visual learner, naturalistic if you want to be more in nature, logical, mathematical, being logic, verbal, linguistic, learning more by words, right? So there's a lot of different ways that people learn. And if you are just trying to check the box from different objectives and assessment and curriculum that you are given, you really miss out on how these learners learn and how they could learn and how they are best at learning. And this can tie into the different taxonomies, can tie into JEDEI, which I've already talked about. And then we move into this idea of multiple intelligences. Now, I've reviewed my context. I have talked about the progression of education. I've also discussed JEDI, and then I've looked about how this would look as we are rethinking education along these lines. Now what I want to do is we're going to move on to a Jamboard, and I'm going to share the link in the chat. See if I can do this seamlessly. Hold on, I don't know why I can't. Can I do this? Wait. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay. I'm going to share a Jamboard link in the chat. Copy this. Here we go. Okay. Please join.
So we can get access to this link.
Yes, you can. Click on the link. Click on the link. The link is in the chat. I'll do it again. All right. So I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. What can incorporating these JEDI ideas, what can that look like in lesson planning? So if you haven't ever used a Jamboard before, there are these little sticky notes that you click on. They're right here. And you can add whatever ideas that you would like to add. Sometimes we go into breakout rooms, but there's only 3 of us right now. There were 4. So we can share our ideas. What are some ways in which we can say JEDI? We can say alternative. Forgot to put this one thing. taxonomies and so we got Jedi, alternative taxonomies, multiple intelligence ideas look like in lesson planning. So what are some ideas? What are ways we can rethink education in these spaces? Again, you can go to the sticky note here. And what are some ways in which we can plan our lessons, taking these ideas into account? So I could say something like understanding how our learners learn. So I would say, for example,
Eduardo, don't you have any problem to get access to this link?
I'm trying to connect now.
no problem. And if you want to share in the chat, I can also put the ideas here. Also, Mr. Andres, I know this is being recorded, so I can leave the Jamboard open for anyone who wants to share their ideas. For anyone watching this recording later on, this link will be open available for a few more weeks if you would like. I have no problem doing that.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. So I started us off understanding how our learners learn differently. What would a lesson plan look like for a visual learner or for verbal learners? What I always try to do is when somebody is speaking, I try to make sure there's some kind of verbal notes or shorthand on the board. So people who are auditory, they're hearing, people who are visual, they're looking up to see. So everybody has those different types of connection. If you're more kinesthetic, getting up, going around the room. If you're more interpersonal, talking about the topic. So what do lesson plans look like to take these different ideas in mind?
Okay, in my opinion, I can make it many different ideas about talking the same topic and make my students practice them to certain ideas of the topic in general.
So they are searching ideas.
Searching ideas and giving them ideas about certain ideas. Okay.
Yeah. So students doing more of the research on the topic. Yes.
Yes. Sure.
That's wonderful.
That's what can I do with that that idea that you're sharing, which is beautiful because there's many different ideas. The more ideas I have, the better ideas can it be beautiful.
100%. I think that's a great idea. It also shows a lot of student-centeredness, making sure students are taking a more active role in their learning. So that's great, giving more of the onus, more of the jobs for the student, tell and say that, what are you finding? What are you thinking? What perspectives can you find on a certain topic? Certain topics might be controversial. Maybe it's not easy for teachers to introduce certain ideas into the classroom, but if students are finding different perspectives and ideas and they're bringing things into the classroom, sometimes it's a little bit easier to have those open civil dialogues that sometimes need to happen to better understand the world that we live in.
Yes, that's my point of view.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Professor Anastasia, I will suggest, for example, in my lesson plans, for example, some activities that promote cooperative learning ideas. No, for example, there are some applications where students can collaborate it. For example, some Padlet, or when they can read text, and they can include comments. They can make their own comments, or they can also make exchange comments with other peers, and that's good because they can do different things. They can read, they can write. Even for speaking, well, I incorporate a link for a video, so they can include. We can include different skills activities, multi-skill activities to practice, no?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Padlets and exchanging comments. I love Padlets. They're wonderful. I love a good Jamboard. I like it because Jamboards and Padlets, you can share images, you can share links, however you're understanding things. I love when we talk about vocabulary, I say, okay, give me a picture of the word. What are you visualizing? Like if you see this word, what are you visualizing? And they show the picture, which helps them to better form connections of this vocabulary to their mind, not just the verbal, not just the word, but also the image. And so the more connections that you form, then the better the acquisition is going to take place. The more meaningful connections that they can form. So absolutely, yes. Anything that's going to be hands-on, anything they can interact with, and plus anything they can revisit later. Because a lot of students are not going to visit their notes, they're not going to go over their notes again, but I mean, they should, but they don't always. But they may revisit a Padlet, they might revisit a Jamboard, they might revisit something that's more of a collaborative piece that students have put together in class, or they put together for homework, or they've done it collaboratively and collectively. Which also means that students are getting different ideas, different perspectives and opinions on how students are viewing certain topics as well. Whereas before, you just had your notebook, they had their individual notes. Now with these platforms, then those ideas can be shared more widely. So absolutely. Very good. Are there any other thoughts? Any other thoughts? I know we're a small group, but this is a great discussion. So I wanted to add the second part of the Jamboard, the second page, looking at what are your remaining questions or takeaways? Remaining questions, takeaways. I mean, a lot of times when we're talking about topics of rethinking education, we're left with more questions than answers, and that's okay because we keep learning and we keep moving forward like this. So what are your remaining questions, takeaways, ideas?
Yeah, I will include one more question, and this question is about what about when we talk about in the term inclusion, a student with special needs or multiple different intelligence. So how can we incorporate these students in this kind of activities in order to promote a meaningful learning with them? For example, adaptive activities, accommodate lesson planning. Is it possible to accommodate lessons for them too?
I absolutely think that there are, and this is where joining English teaching organizations are so crucial. TESOL International actually does have a special education, special needs interest section where they talk about all these different ideas. So we have special needs, we have K through 12, we have social responsibility, and these different types of organizations, these different types of intersections, they pass ideas around so people can share those ideas. I'm not very well versed on special needs, but I do know that there are so many articles out there. Although, no, you know what, I do. There is one of my students, he has ADHD. He was diagnosed and he told me I have ADHD. And I said, well, what type of it? Because there's many types. And he's like, well, I can't always sit still. I have to move around. So like every few minutes, I'm saying, okay, then you have a seat in the back. And then you can move around in the back. You can do it because I know he's paying attention. He just needs to move around. He needs to move his body. Sometimes they might need more time. Sometimes they might need more time to focus. Sometimes they need a summary of the article. So I teach university. So if they need like a summary of the article beforehand, just to kind of give the basic overview to let them kind of activate their schemata in their brain. There are different ways in which we can accommodate. And a lot of times what makes it really interesting, a lot of times the accommodation that the ADHD student might need, the other students benefit from. They need a quick summary. Okay, great. Students can also benefit from that. They need more frequent breaks. Sometimes other students can benefit from that too. So it's not always like, okay, this student needs this. We can adapt the lesson plan. I can have these different types of differential learning, but a lot of times, especially when you have an English as a second language background, all students are going to be able to benefit from whatever extra modification that you're making, depending on what the student's needs are. So I've actually found that I'm not making a ton of modifications just for one student. It's actually helped me when I've had to simplify a few things or make something a bit clearer. Other students might need that clarity too, that may not be diagnosed with ADHD or another type of special need. So that's definitely something. But I also reach out to my IS organization for TESOL and say, hey, I've got this student. Any ideas, any thoughts? And there are experts who will deal with that as well. But it's definitely possible to include 100%.
That was great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or takeaways? Any other thoughts? And for those who are watching the recording, again, the link, I think the link can probably be put in the recording so that you'll be able to see it. There are 2 pages to this Jamboard. I want to hear your thoughts and I want to hear what you think. All right, so finally, you can contact me. I have my email, my LinkedIn QR code is right here. If you're not already connected with me, please connect with me. I'd love to hear from you. My IG, my Instagram is also there, and I'm located in Ramallah, Palestine.
Okay, great.
And
We can contact you, Professor, also in the social medias, no? In case more teachers they wanted to ask frequent questions.
100%. Instagram is here and my LinkedIn QR code is there. So please reach out to me. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. These are just ideas, but they build on depending on how much feedback we get from educators from all around the world. We can continue to strengthen those ideas with the knowledge that we have from different parts of the world. So everybody's impact is crucial to be able to move forward and keep rethinking education. Just because you might change one thing does not mean we might have to not change it again for one semester or again another semester. It's constant, it's dynamic, it is recursive, but there's no better job, in my opinion. So we are blessed to be able to be educators. So on that conclusion, thank you so much. Gracias, shukran. Thank you all so much for coming or for watching later. It is my pleasure. It is my absolute pleasure to be here a second time. And thank you. Thank you so much.
I just want to say thank you for sharing.
Spanish, thank you. You say gracias, no?
Gracias. Oh, yes, it's my second language.
Yeah, Professor, thank you so much for your very creative way of explaining and the way you approach us and teach us how to promote this education injustice. I will post the Jamboard, okay, in the groups, and the teachers will pose the questions in case they have, and also I will reach your invitation to be part in the frequent questions to ask you.
Thank you so much. And honestly, I would love to, if we could have a follow-up after people watch the recording, I can come back and we can do another Q&A to have more people. If you would like to schedule that, I would love to. So just let me know.
Yeah. So we can schedule and we can invite the teachers for that. Professor, I think that maybe in another we will have another session. Maybe the next year we can invite you to have another presentation with maybe with another topic, or if you think that this topic can be rescheduled, maybe it would be great.
Yeah, I think that, people could maybe, watch the video and then just come on with their ideas and we can really have a hands-on discussion section or just a discussion session for how, we can rethink education in our classrooms. I think that would be really fun to do in the new year. So let me know.
Yeah, I would do it, Professor. Eduardo, do you have any last comment?
I just want to say that I really enjoyed the class, and it was a really nice class. I really enjoyed learning many good things. Thank you, Professor. Thank you for sharing that ideas.
Thank you so much for coming from Bolivia. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
Professor, thank you so much for being here. my best wishes for you in your presentations, and send my greetings to Palestine.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon in the
Okay,
new
See you
year.
bye-bye.
soon. Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.